Hey everyone, welcome back to Treehouse Garden. It's Kimberly here. It's the beginning of June and the garden is really popping right now. I thought I would take you on a tour of my Olle Garden raised bed section of the garden. Remember, you can use code Treehouse Garden at checkout and you'll get 10% off your purchases. Father's Day is coming up. That would be a nice gift if you have a gardening person in your family. I also will show you my raised bed boxes that I built, and those were about $150 a box. And I have created a handy panel arch tunnel in the boxes, if you could see them in the back there. And that tunnel alone cost about $250, and I got those panels, are called handy panels, at Tractor Supply, and I just literally made an arch and attached them to the wood beds. And then the last part of the garden, the in-ground part, is mostly tomatoes growing up cattle panels that I zip tie to T-posts, and I get those cattle panels also at Tractor Supply. I find it's the easiest way to grow tomatoes. You don't have to use the cages, you don't have to tie them up, you just literally weave them in and out of the cattle panels as they grow. So let's go check out my garden and see what I'm growing. All right, let's start the tour in the dramatic entrance. These are Olle Garden beds that cost roughly $1.99. Again, you can use my code and get 10% off. And then these are Olle arches that cost $1.49. You could use my code and get 10% off. I'm growing some really great things, a lot of things in these boxes. So a lot of wildflowers that are really, really tall. I've actually cut some down because they were getting too tall and flopping over. Some calendula. I have a squash that I'm growing up the arch, and on the outside of the arch I have a beautiful sunflower. At the base I pulled out my snap peas because it got hot and they said I'm done. I put some beans that are bush beans in there. I just watered those in. On this box, again, some wildflowers, sunflower. And moving forward, some beautiful zinnias. Oh my gosh, I love zinnias. I like that they can grow really tall and not flop over. They're a real sturdy plant. You can even cut them in half and they'll stay shorter and bushier. This one is called candy cane. So pretty. I love these. I got those seeds from Gran's Garden Seed. She's out of Texas. And you could use my code Treehouse Garden and she'll give you 20% off your purchase. So growing up the arch here are my Kentucky pole beans. They're almost reaching together at the top. At the base I have some Swiss chard. I have some little jars here. One is for when I find squash bugs, I dunk them in the water and drown them. The other one I'm just collecting heads of calendula to dry and save for next year. So very exciting. There's a sunflower also in there. Moving to this next bed here, we've got some peppers that I recently topped. I cut them at the top here, you can see, and that forces them to grow smaller and bushier, and then your peppers don't sunburn as much and you don't have to stake them up, which is nice. I have a squash here. Then I'm growing some cucumbers up the Olle arch, and then at the back of the bed some more peppers. This side was like a total experiment. I did some corn, which is awesome. And then at the base of the corn I thought, I think basil will do well because it gets just enough sun to grow, but not enough to bolt and get stressed. So my basil is looking fabulous. I planted everything in this garden this year from seed. And then I have some cucumber, again, that I'm guiding up the Olle arch. So we're in the newer part of the garden addition here, and you can see I don't have my fabric down on the ground. I buy this fabric on Amazon. It's a black fabric that keeps the weeds out, and then I just put down some wood chips that you can get from Chip Drop. You just get on their list and they bring you chips. So I need to put that down to conquer these weeds. But yesterday I planted this new, it's an Olle Garden U arch. I got cream color. I planted some Golden Jenny melons, some Charlenta melons, and some model melons, and model melons. And then in the middle I have my really cool worm composting kit from Olle Gardens. It's really neat. You just buy your composting worms, you put a little dirt and starter mix in there, and then you just put your kitchen scraps in the thing, and the worms eat them. They go in and out of these little holes, and they poop in the garden, which is really good, worm castings. And then they also aerate the soil. So you feed them and they stay in the bed and keep happy. So I'm excited to see these squash plants come up. The other one, which is a new shape also from Olle Gardens, this is the L. I really like them because it's so easy to work this space. You're not leaning over in the middle. It's just everything's easy to get to. I gotta weed this one, but today I'm planning on doing some more corn from Baker Creek, and at the base I'm going to grow some carrots. So corn and carrots are going to go into this Olle bed. All right, so let's move to the wooden boxes. There's my little water fountain that I get a lot of bees visit. I have some beautiful sunflowers. I bought a lot of sunflower seeds from Baker Creek. They're so pretty. I've never done them before. It's very exciting. Got some beets in there still. We'll be pulling those pretty soon to juice. I love to juice beets. They're really good for you. So when you're thinking about what you're planting in the garden, think about things you can also juice if that's something you like to do, or throw into smoothies. So I just harvested the last of my broccoli and I haven't planted this section yet. Over here I have more peppers, and I also topped these peppers. You can see where I cut them right there, and now I have all these new little leaves. I'll probably cut these big guys off today too. So again, when you top your peppers, it creates the pepper plant a desire to grow out bushier, which means you don't have to stake your peppers. They just grow nice and bushy, and then the fruit is shielded from the sun from all the bushy leaves. So that's the way I like to do it, and I find it produces more peppers. Some onions here, some viola. This is a squash. What is this one? This one is called Long Island cheese. So I put it on the edge of the bed and I'm just gonna let it spill out. And then some little artichokes and some thyme. Back to the Olle Garden section here. This is same configuration as that bed, it just assembled it differently. These beds cost about $1.99. And inside here I've got some onions, some squash, some peppers. Look at this guy, he's like really growing. So I'm just gonna let him guide outside of the box. So even though squash take up a lot of room, remember if you put them on the edge of a planter, it can just spill out over the side. And if the leaves start to go and kind of infringe on other plants, I just clip them away. So I'll be clipping this guy to make sure my pepper gets enough sunlight. Squash are very forgiving. I took out my snap peas because they got hot and croaked. And here I have some lemon balm, some parsley, some calendula, and then a little bit of basil. This is my potato Olle Garden box that I did the no dig method, just put them down. I have a video on that. They're starting to yellow, so I'm thinking it's getting close to time to harvest them. All right, and another Olle Garden box has more squash, some onions, some beautiful sunflowers, and some peppers. So again, I'm planting the squash. I know they take a big footprint, but I'll put them on the edge of a bed and guide it to grow all the leaves and fruit outside of the bed. So even if you only have one space, think about it. I have onions, herbs, calendula, can be made into teas and herbal ointments, all kinds of things, peppers, sunflowers, all in one box. So I like to jam pack them, just be really smart with where you put things. All right, moving on to the wooden box area again. I have a squash plant that's going to be growing out the side. I have a ton of Swiss chard. I need to pick a bunch of this. It's getting outrageous. I like to juice Swiss chard. It's a really good nutrient to add to juice. And just if you add something sweet with it, you don't even taste the chard. Not that chard tastes bad, it just can be strong. Some more squash that I'm planted right at the edge, and I'm just letting it trail out. And then inside the box here, I've got some baby eggplants, some parsley, more squash, and an eggplant that's, still, some bugs really like my eggplants this year. And then here we have some cucumbers that I am growing up the trellis, as well as some squash. And there's a big baby on there, so exciting. These are some wildflowers here, and then some peppers again in the middle of the box. This is a yellow, what is the yellow zucchini that I put, and I'm gonna let it trail out. And then on the back, I'm growing blue Hubbard squash. It's gonna be kind of big squash, so luckily I have this big tunnel that is going to support those squash. All right, so more squash here, onions, got a couple little guys right there, and then some eggplant in the front that I just planted. All right, going this way again, squash on the outside to go over, squash that I'm training to go up. These are snapdragons. And then in the bed, I have some little baby white cherry tomatoes that I put in there, and I also sprinkled in some carrot seeds in this bed. Here we have more peppers. Again, I topped them, and now they're getting all this new growth. That's the way you want to grow your peppers. And then some artichokes, and more squash that I am growing up the trellis. Alright, in this wooden box I have onions, snapdragons, peppers, and then I don't know if you saw my video, but I planted some delicata squash along the side. They're already starting to pop up, and I will be guiding those up the trellis. Little squash to go over the outside. I also planted squash in here, starting to come up, and then some little gherkin cucumbers that haven't shown up yet to the party, but they should soon. All right, lots and lots of weeds because, again, I need to get my garden mat stuff down and my chips. These are my those were my newest though. My second to the newest, Olle Garden beds. These are barnyard red. These run, I think, $1.99 or $2.99. I can't remember. I'll have to look them up. But these are really pretty. I decided to try another color, and you can see I have a ton of weeds. I gotta get in there. But I have zinnias growing and also some sugar baby watermelon seeds that I got from Grand's Garden Seeds. In this box, again, this soil obviously had a lot of weeds in it, and it's gonna be a problem, but with a little hard work, I'll get it all out. But I did plant some, what are these? Not okra. Maybe, oh yeah, these are okra. Some little okra seeds coming up. A squash to go out the side. Another melon here. And then, oh, here's my okra right here. There's a little okra. And some tomatillas. And then more okra. So I have a lot of weeding to do in here. Once I get it weeded, I probably will put down some rice straw, not hay, because that's how you get seeds, but rice straw that I get at my local barn feed store, and I'll put that down to keep the weeds down, because obviously this dirt wasn't the best dirt to use. And then in this bed, I have some more things popping up that are trying to survive with all these weeds. So this week, I'm going to be focusing on those beds. So here's the black garden mat stuff that I was talking about. It comes in a big roll. I get the biggest roll. It's not that much actually, because it goes a long way. It's under $100 for probably do most people's whole garden. So I have the mats down, and I'm just waiting for more chip drop to drop some chips. Look at this sunflower. It's called Mammoth Sunflower. This one is from Burpee. I'm so excited. It's so pretty. And then these are all my little asparagus babies. So some of the side, the ones here with little flowers, those were the crowns. And these were the seeds. And they're doing great. So I'm very excited about that. Some bee balm for the bees, wildflowers here. More squash that I'm going to grow up the trellis, onions, asparagus, peppers. So as you can see, cucumbers. I like to mix and match things in my bed. I used to plant like a row of peppers, a row of zucchini, a row of eggplant, and I've decided to do more of an eclectic approach with this new garden, and I'm loving it. Check out all these butternut squash I have growing. These are honey butternut. I'm so excited. There's at least 10 on the plant. I am having to go through daily though and watch for squash eggs, squash bug eggs, like right here. There are some. So I just get out here. Sometimes I just get lazy and snip the whole leaf off and then soak it in water to drown them. Or sometimes I bring out some tape and I just roll the eggs off of the leaves. This is spinach that I'm letting to go to seed just to harvest, and then I'll clear it out. more squash. Man, I'm gonna have a lot of squash. They're all different kinds of squash this year though. I don't even know if I actually did a real green zucchini. On this side, this is that Hubbard squash. So far, so good. Got a couple of them. So they seem to like the arch so far. And then over here, some really cute little, what are these? These are called sweet dumpling. Sweet dumpling. Very cute. And then I have some cilantro that I'm letting go to seed. And my chives are starting to flower. The bees love them. And did you know that chive flowers are edible and they're really delicious? So, oh my gosh, you guys, check it out. What did I miss? Holy schmoly. Oh my goodness. I'd say I missed a zucchini. I did plant a regular one. That's huge. Alright, so we're in the in-ground part, and it looks like a disaster because it's a work in progress. This is my first year with this new garden. I started last year, but didn't really have time to do much. So on the perimeter of the garden, I planted a ton of marigolds and also onions. This is supposed to detour pests from getting in the garden, and so far I haven't had anything, not even deer, but I do have 2 beagles that bark and scare things away. But at night, so far so good. And then more sunflowers. And then here are my tomatoes that I am growing up the cattle panels. I also have some tomatillas. This is some arugula that I tore out and I let it go to seed. So I'm gonna do a video on how to harvest those seeds. Tomatillas, looking great. Almost to the top of the trellis. And then I did a really good job of cleaning out the bottom of the tomatoes. Try to get rid of as many suckers as I can, and we got a lot of tomatoes coming. So I like to do my tomatoes in succession. So this was my first batch, and this is my second batch. It's a lot smaller. So I told everybody the other day that I went in and trimmed suckers from the tomatoes. So let me see if I can find one to show you what I mean by that. So ideally you want to have one main stem and just that stem. So even right here you could see I have like a whole other plant at the base of that one. And I'll totally clip that off, soak it a little bit, and replant it once it gets roots. Let's see. It's kind of hard to see because there's such a mess right now. I haven't done this row yet, but I'll do a video and show you how to find the, oh, here's like, for example, here's one. So we've got the main branch, right? Well, I call it the armpit. In the armpit, you have another like plant trying to take off. So I would snip that, soak it in some water, and replant it when it gets some roots. You can also dip it in some rooting solution. Water's free and easy, so that's the way I do it. So here's another one I would say is, so on the main stalk here, then we have one that's just trying to, right here in this armpit, trying to make another plant. I'll just snip that off. So you don't have to do this. It's just, if you do, in my experience, you get more tomato production, letting it concentrate on kind of like having one main branch. It's kind of a bummer I'm ending the garden tour in the ugly part of the garden. It's just so rough and raw still. But I do have a third planting of tomatoes that are a lot littler. That way my tomatoes last longer. Still tons of weeds. I need to get in here and get that fabric down, get some chips down, and really work on getting rid of the weeds. So I do have a lot of tomatoes still, not tomatoes, potatoes that hopefully will be ready to harvest soon. And then on the perimeter, I just planted some beautiful sunflowers. Next year I want to do like a whole big section. I've been traveling through the south of France, and the fields of sunflowers are absolutely gorgeous. So I, in the future, one day, will have a big sunflower patch. All right, guys, thanks for joining me today on this journey. Well, thanks for joining me today on my garden tour. Hope I've given you a little bit of garden inspiration. I know when I watch fellow YouTubers or TikToks or Instagrams or Facebook posts, I always like to glean some new information and some new inspiration. So I hope I've inspired you to maybe even start small with one raised bed or one little plot in the garden and grow as you grow as a gardener. Thanks for joining me again, and don't forget to seed the day.